Hello and welcome back to the Leading Lives podcast. On the show today, we're going to be looking at how personal fitness can help promote not only physical but mental health too. Along the way, we're going to have a look at how toxic relationships can shape your mood and what everyone can do to make themselves a stronger and a better person. Now, my studio guest makes me get out of breath just seeing her in the gym. It's fitness instructor and transformational coach, Reeta Hill. Reeta, thanks for coming in. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, what's it like being in the hot seat there?
Do you know, I'm not used to it. I'm normally asking my clients all of the stuff you're probably going to ask me. So it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about your upbringing, your career journey,
Yeah.
and then what you're doing now. And we're going to jump right into it, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you're a local lady, but of heritage from Sri Lanka. Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
So we're going back not too long.
No.
I'm not that old. My parents, born in Sri Lanka, moved to Dorset in the 70s. I'm not going to go way back in detail because it's just too far. But yeah, so I was born here in Poole in the 80s. Growing up, it was different. I mean, I didn't know any different, but now looking back at what I went through growing up, there's a very big difference. I mean, we grew up in Wimborne. We were the only Asian family, I say Asian, South Asian family growing up there. So obviously I brought up with all my friends and, you know, lifestyle was very English for us. And remember, we're going back quite a few years. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have much else to see.
Don't give too much away, Rita. We keep some of these things are best left not said.
Exactly. So it's, growing up was it was different because I had a cultural upbringing from Sri Lanka. Obviously, my parents were very cultural. They had their beliefs. I was going to school locally, so I had my beliefs of how I wanted to.
So you were the only Asian in school. How did that feel? Did you feel different?
I did, but I didn't feel it wasn't a negative.
Mm-hmm.
You're just aware at that age because you're young, and impressionable. For example, just simple things like my hair. I had curly hair, and I'd look at my friends and they had really nice, silky, straight hair, and I wanted, so I'd spend hours trying to straighten my hair, for example, just small things.
It's a real nuisance. This hours we have to spend, isn't it? It's terrible.
I forgot, but just small things like that. Maybe clothing as well. So growing up, and I went through teenage years, and you're growing up with beliefs that your parents want you to wear certain things because it's a cultural belief. But I wanted to wear things that my friends were wearing, and you are, a teenage girl, you wanted to go to the beach, for example, you want to go out with friends in the evening, and so it was caught in between two cultures, and that was hard growing up.
How strict was it?
I'd say my parents weren't strict in terms of religious beliefs. They're practicing, they're Hindu, they're practicing. So we'd go to some festivals and functions, for example, but not religiously. So we didn't have to do anything religiously, or we didn't have to do anything forced, if that makes sense. It was a nice kind of upbringing in that way. But it was strict in terms of my dad was a very strong character at home. He wanted me to do certain things, for example, academically, you had to study, you had to, in those cultures as well, you kind of are seen to be successful if you're a lawyer or you're a doctor or, in those kind of professions. So that was always drummed into my head that I had to study, I had to get to that level. And that was hard in that way because obviously I was quite an extrovert and I was very different in my character, even from a young age. I wanted to dance. I was a part of a dancing school. I was doing swimming, so I was very much the other way. So it was hard to kind of try and get my interests across to my parents.
How different was it being a girl?
It was very different because, again, and I say this because it is probably the way that we're brought up. My dad was brought up, but he will outright say to me, growing up, you can't do this because you're a girl. And, like I said, we are going back a few years. But my brothers could do this, or, I couldn't go out, for example, in the evening to a party, but my younger brother could, who's younger than me, obviously, at the time. So I was always, in a bit of a rebel mode then. And I said, why can he go? He's younger than me and I'm the older one, But I could see that my friends were doing certain things. They were allowed to go to this party. They were allowed to go out in the evening. They were allowed to socialise, but I wasn't. So it was a fight. It was a constant battle with my parents. But I think they started transitioning the older I got because they
Hmm.
realised that we are living in Dorset. I always felt like my character was quite a big character, and maybe I was suppressed quite a lot at the time. I did study a lot. I did have to listen to my parents, so I did do the educational things that they wanted me to do. But in my head, I knew that I wanted to almost break free from that as well.
It's interesting because I put a word in my notes here.
Mm.
We spoke prior to coming on air, so I know a little bit about Rita's background. I put the word rebellious down here.
Yeah.
How much does that sum you up?
Probably all my life. I think it got installed in my, I think it was always been in my brain because I think my character was so strong. I almost say this and it feels like it sums me up. I was almost born in the wrong culture because I had to, I wanted to be me, I wanted to be this extrovert, this person that can talk to anybody. And I actually wanted to be in media. I wanted to do that kind of route, but I couldn't do that. So I did rebel from a young age in all ways. I mean, it wasn't always just to go out with friends or just to party. It was always, maybe the course my dad wanted me to. I didn't want to do that at school or a job. For example, he'd say, "Oh, you need to do this or you need to go into law." I don't want to do that. You can't go on holidays with your friends, for example. I wanted, so the rebel word, it, I say it in a playful way because like I said, it's in everything I do, and it did carve me to what I am today. I think the character I am, and I think for the first time in the last, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years, I feel like I could actually be me, who I want to be, and it's probably because I'm now a mum. I've got my own life.
Let's move on to your early work life. What did you do? You said you had this rebellious nature. Your family wanted you to be
Mm.
doctor, dentist, whatever. What did you do?
I did listen to my dad, so it wasn't that much of a rebel. I did study. I've got a degree in pharmacology, so I did in drug development, and it's all into the science research, and I was proud. It was a rewarding job because you're studying medicines, you're developing drugs, and it's actually drugs that are curing cancers. For example, I worked on a lot of cancer products. I worked on Alzheimer's. I worked on the new migraine drugs that are around. So you're proud, and then obviously your parents are proud. And I was seeing the drugs that I was working on in the industry, they're on the shelves, when you go into shops or things. So you are proud, and I was happy with that. I then channeled all of my strengths, I think, into maybe the career I wanted wasn't so much me at the time, but I was happy. I was earning well, I was living in London. I was having this life, and in your 20s, it's the best place to be. And I was finally got independence because maybe financially I was fine. I showed my dad that I could do what I wanted to do and be successful in my own way. So I was happy. And then it's only then in that industry I started pushing my determination in all other areas.
I've got this word written down, which I pulled from your LinkedIn profile.
Mm,
Pharmacovigilance.
yeah.
Now, I can barely pronounce that, let
Mm,
alone know what it is.
mm.
Please enlighten me.
But I think it's like my old surname. My old surname's 16 letters,
Oh, really?
but it's easy to pronounce. Pharmacovigilance is a long word, and it's just really summed up. It's just monitoring drugs,
Okay.
and that's what it means. So you're kind of watching new drugs in the market. When new drugs are released in the market, I won't bore you with this because it's very long-winded. But when you release a drug in the market, the industry has to watch it for a good
Yeah.
5 years. It's called a black triangle. And then all these reports, the adverse effects, and when people or patients report things that are happening to them, so we get those reports in, and then that carves the way that the drug's going to be released again.
Right, let's move on because I'm bored.
Yeah,
Starting to fall asleep there. No. No.
I did.
You got married.
Mm,
That was while you were in London, yeah?
yeah.
And then you came back down to Dorset, back to your home.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah, I spent all my life rebelling and wanted to get away, and then I come back of my own will. But I got married, obviously, to somebody I met in London.
Hmm.
So we had that life together, and it was great. Then you have kids. When I had the kids, I knew, and I think it's always in your head that you want them to be brought up. And I loved obviously the coast, the beach, and then my ex-husband, he used to come down here every year in his childhood, which is weird. So when
Oh,
we
okay.
met, he knew the area really well
Oh,
because he
that's
came
good.
here and holidayed every year.
Yeah.
So we both were in agreement. We said, "Oh, let's bring the kids up by the coast."
Oh,
And we came back here. So yeah, it was a good move.
In 2016,
Mm.
you moved into more of a coaching role. Tell me a bit about that.
I loved coaching. I mean, when I was in corporate world, pharmacovigilance and the drug development area, I when I said I climbed quite high, I climbed in a more of a management way.
Hmm.
I loved all the people stuff. I loved, looking after my team. I loved pushing them, and I always took on in jobs that I had in the industry. They always gave me roles that were quite tailored to people or training the company. Quite out there roles, and I loved it. So the coaching came about because I knew I had the expertise for it, but in a different industry.
And what kind of coaching was it?
The coaching I did then was corporate coaching.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very like business related, and I was dealing with economists and mathematicians and whatever, and you've got a team of them, and you're coaching them to like project managers to how to hit targets, and basically
People
you're
with egos.
yeah, the people with egos, and and the hard thing with the industry is that a lot of the industry is made up of introvert characters,
Hmm.
and I was again very extrovert, probably one of few. So they wanted me to coach these characters because you're dealing with clients, you're dealing with meetings, and you've got to be outspoken. I had to coach them in that way and how to be a bit more extrovert, which is really, you know,
God, that
weird.
must have been
So,
really difficult, actually, because as I've already told you, I
mm,
think I'm quite introverted and rebel against that,
mm,
that side of my nature, which is bizarre, really, isn't it? I don't think somebody could teach me to
yeah,
get out of my shell.
yeah.
How difficult was it?
It wasn't. I think the way I did it wasn't difficult because they're performing a job role, and if I could make somebody see their job role was to be this person, it's almost like I wasn't telling them they had to suddenly change everything about their life. It was almost to perform in your role that you're doing, and you want to get the best out of it, and you want to, like, for example, talk to clients better, which makes the projects run better, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. If you want to perform better in your job role, I had to try and make these employees see that they could get there just by tweaking a few things to their character traits in that role. It wasn't as hard as it seems because, and that's how it followed on through the coaching, and that's the key to a bit of the coaching I do. It's always making people understand the goal first and then developing that mindset and the motivation.
I
So,
know when in our chat so far,
mm.
you've tried to make me a better person. You're chasing a lost cause, I can tell you. So
Is it too late?
yeah, too late. Yeah, years too late, I think. In 2021,
Mm,
we were emerging from lockdown, of course, 3 lockdowns.
yeah.
Um, you set up your own freelance
Mm,
business. Now, this was transformational executive coach.
mm,
Is that basically an extension of what you were doing up to that point? Tell
yeah.
me more.
So the coaching it is an extension. It's basically I wanted to qualify in it. So
Hmm.
and get a certificate. So a lot of it came about after the kids. I had a few health issues.
Right.
So obviously health was a big thing for me.
Hmm.
And so when we go back that many years, my oldest is 14 now, so we're going back quite a few years. But at that point, I had my career, but then I had the health issues. So I had this battle of, I had to get myself. If you haven't got health, I say health is wealth. If you haven't got your health, there's nothing else that can happen. I couldn't at that point. I couldn't even be the mum I wanted to be. I couldn't be the career mum I wanted to be. So anything I wanted to do was stopped because of my health at that point. So I came down to I had a break and lockdown, and I thought, what is the biggest thing for me? And it was getting my coaching and my skills, but I couldn't travel, for example, at that point. You're locked down. Also, my health was bad. I had a few operations and won't go into that now, but it was kind of something that reset me. My mindset had to reset. So I qualified as a transformational coach, which basically means, um, and it was with the Animus Academy, and it was a depth of coaching where you have, for example, you've got an iceberg. That's how they explain it, the iceberg model. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of it.
Go on,
And
enlighten us.
enlighten you. So with coaching, and obviously you're tapping into people's mindset and beliefs and everything. So you've got the iceberg model, and iceberg sits on the sea.
Hmm.
So there's one level of coaching where you're dealing with the iceberg as one. The transformational bit is the bit underneath the sea that you don't see that supports the iceberg.
Which is something like isn't it? Like 2/3 of the iceberg is below the
Yeah.
surface.
Yeah. So it's very deep level coaching.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tools, for example, CBT and things that people are aware of.
Hmm.
So it's a level of that. But what I wanted to do was I'd had a lot of coaching experience, but obviously I haven't gone deep. So I wanted to get deeper, wanted to qualify in it. And I knew at that point when I was dealing with my own health, for me, I think when someone's even physically wanting to change their body, you actually have to tap quite deep into their mindset to get that going. The other belief I had was with coaching and health and mindset coaching and all of the things I do now was that I wanted people or my clients, I wanted them to be aligned with my belief, which was it has to be a long-term goal. So I wasn't here for doing short-term fixes.
Ah.
And everyone's different and PTs are different and coaches are different and everyone's got their own niche. But my niche, I wanted my clientele to understand it was a deep level.
So you're in it for the long haul, if you like.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
do short-term fixes. So for example, and this is like I said, it's my personal thing. I don't do fad diets, for example. I don't do quick fixes, or I don't tell somebody to not eat for 6 weeks and you'll suddenly look like this. I'm very much like a life balance because a lot of my clients I deal with have kids, work, businesses, so I like that clientele to deal with because I can balance it. And I feel like I need to hit deep at that point in their mindset for them to change because you've got to shift everything in that life. So you need a good balance. So they've got one balance, which obviously they come to me and it's not working. You have to then go deeper than normal to then make somebody shift their life. And we're talking about all factors in their life, for example, kids, social time,
Yeah.
family, partners. And then you have to then focus on a physical goal.
So this can get quite intense, I would imagine. Yeah. And
Yeah.
people must get very trusting of you. You've got that
Yeah.
kind of nature, though, haven't you?
Yeah. I love it because they have, for example, so this is a true story. I had one client early on. In lockdown, like when I finished qualifying and, I qualified as a transformational coach. I also did my PT qualifications at the same time.
Right.
So I get this all round. And my belief was emotional well-being and physical well-being. So I wanted to become this all-round coach. So when I qualified on that, one of my friends said to me, she said, by the way, she said, you don't need a certificate for every interest you've got because at that point I've got 3 degrees, I've got a master's, I've now qualified as a PT and then a coach. And she said to me, you don't need a certificate on the wall for everything you're interested in.
What are you trying to prove and to whom by having all the certificates?
Two different chapters. I think the academic was obviously the parents, because it
Yeah.
was like I said, I was always in that belief and I've made to believe that you're only successful if you qualify in certain things academically. So that was that thinking. But then as I got older, my deep rooted interests and all my characters started coming out. And I realized actually I'm a stronger person. I've got my own kids, I've got my life. And it sounds really odd to say this, because I'm sat here as a grown woman with children, but you still care what your parents think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it maybe, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I could go home, for example, even at this age to my parents' house and I still feel like a 12-year-old because they will still tell me what to do, and that's how
Yeah.
the culture is. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's an Asian culture that we go home and they still almost see you as their child,
Well,
you
you
know.
always will be.
Yeah.
I think I'm like that with my kids, even though they're big.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
never grow out of that, do you? And I still, like I said, my parents are this age and I'm this age now, and I can go home with my kids and they still will speak to me like a child.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so the proving was one thing from parents. And then I think I then wanted to qualify, and the physical PT and the coaching, the credentials was because I wanted to prove to my clients that I'm serious about what I'm doing. Because
Yeah.
when you're hitting a deep level of coaching, I felt like I was going to be this credible PT coach, stroke, emotional coach. And I felt like I would be better and I perform better if I had this certificate and I knew I was qualified in that. And that's my.
You were going to give me an example of one case study, and you got sidetracked, which is a common theme when we've chatted. So come on, give me that example.
As soon as I qualified, I had a client and she came to me, and obviously I didn't know the background to why she wanted a coach and what coaching she wanted. So, but it actually helped me realize what I did and what I qualified in, and all my skills were right for the clientele I wanted. Because she came to me, she had quite a bad luck, a string of bad things that happened. For example, death in the family,
Okay.
diagnosed with an illness that was lifelong now, can't be
Hmm.
cured. And then a lot of other things that were going with jobs. So, for example, every aspect of her life, it was just bang, bang, bang,
Yeah.
and it was there. Anyway, the first session we had, I did this thing where I was selling the coaching as packages. So I was selling them as a block of 10, for example, and you can choose between the emotional transformational coaching, which is the deep emotional, or the physical. At this point, when she came, we had a consultation. She sat down and she just cried.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because all of this emotion, because I have to create a safe space as well, because I have to go deep. So I had the safe space. She cried, and then obviously we had this consultation, which I then said to her, we need to kind of focus on the emotional first. But when she came to me before she sat down, it was more about the physical. When I delved into it, I said, actually, do you know what? I said the goals you want physically are probably going to be easier to reach, and you will get there, but we need to untangle some stuff from the past first, because they're going to be the hurdle to you.
What's the hardest thing that you find about coaching? I mean, how do you distance yourself with your emotions? That's one thing I would struggle with, I think.
You get used to it, because with coaching, as a coach, you have to be empathetic,
Yeah.
you have to be obviously trustworthy, you have to create a safe space for your clients, and you have to build a rapport with them, and also you have to understand their perspective. So you feel like when you do all of that, you do feel like, oh, how do you not get caught up in their emotions? But you suddenly feel responsible for your clients, so it's almost like they become vulnerable. And I find it easier now, being a mum, to be in that role, because I am doing that anyway with my children.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when I have clients, it almost, when they're vulnerable in front of me and they're telling me certain things, and I have this empathy, that client is telling me, when they started opening up, they're saying to me, I'm vulnerable, here's me, can you look after me? And that's the role I take. So then when I have that role in my head, I have to stay strong. So as much as I understand everything, because I've gone through a lot in my lifetime,
Hmm.
and to be honest, and that's the other thing about the coaching I love, is because every client I've had, and every client, because a niche I pick, I can relate to something. For example, even if it's just having children, or having a career, and people have got a business and they're working away from home, or health issue, everything I've always related to something, and that makes my coaching a lot better. And I think it makes me feel like I can give them the best experience, and I can give them the best advice and the best coaching, because I've been there, done that.
I had a chap in a few weeks back. His name was Dan Clark, and
Mm,
he's a spiritual medium.
mm,
And he was saying to me that, because obviously he's diving deep into people's psyche and stuff, and
mm, mm,
telling them that he's got a spirit there. And he was saying that he literally walks out at the end of a coaching session or a mentoring session
mm,
with them, and he switches off completely, forgets all about it, and he wouldn't even recognise them
mm,
an
mm.
hour later. I can't imagine you're like that somehow.
I always feel like no, I don't switch off and I don't forget. I mean,
Hmm.
I can think about things, but then I feel like I have to, because that's my homework. Because with all of the goals we're hitting, they're not something that, they walk out the door, and it's not, for example, just a therapy session for them, or it's
Hmm.
not, they do want other goals as well.
Yeah.
So I have to then kind of put it all together. I have to kind of digest it, and then I sit there and I think, oh, how can we get to that goal that they want? Because their ultimate goal could be, I want to just, as simple as lose a stone, for example,
Hmm.
or I want to be strong because I'm going through menopause. I have to then think, okay, we need to do this, and we need to get there. So I don't
Yeah.
really switch off.
I think, to be fair to Dan, I wasn't,
Mm.
saying that he was being callous. It was
No, no,
just his
no.
way of dealing with sometimes trauma that he had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had another chap, Mick Hawkes,
Mm.
who was an SAS soldier,
Mm.
who was in just in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And he proved that even the toughest amongst us can struggle with their mental health.
Mm.
How big a role does getting things off your chest play?
I am such a big believer in talking. I love communication.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that I always think that if you've got a problem, if I've got a problem, or anyone's got a problem, I always think, obviously, this is how I am. You share it. You
Hmm.
speak to somebody, if it's a friend, and I am such a talker in that way, which is why I love all of the things I do. And I've seen it with people that don't like to open up, and sometimes they do open up, and suddenly they go, "Oh my God, that feels so much better." And getting advice of different people. So when I've got a problem, I'm the first one to go to a close friend, go to
Yeah.
a family member, because I can actually take the advice. But I go through the advice, and I kind of take it in, and I think, can I use it? Can I not? But I have to talk about it. So
Yeah.
I think communication is so important in any problem you've got.
I say to my daughter,
Mm,
who's nearly 17 now, if you've got good communication, it will get you through just about anything in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I've said that several times in this
But
podcast series.
it is true, though.
Yeah.
It is true. Mm.
When we were chatting through before we started filming, you were telling me about a client who was having a tough time dealing with a toxic relationship. That really sparked my interest as well. How does mindset help somebody deal with the toughest of times?
I say mindset is the most strongest thing because, you know, if you put your mind, everyone knows this, if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And you really can. And probably can do more than you actually thought you could with the right mindset.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been there and a lot of people have been there. And it's toxic relationships can affect a lot of your mindset in any goal. I mean, it affects everything because obviously it affects your work life, it affects your family life, you know. Having clients that have gone through problems like that, it is difficult. It's kind of almost one of those things where you can empathize as well,
Yeah.
but it is really important to kind of get to the bottom of certain things, and it can be quite a difficult subject for a lot of people. For example, you have a client that's gone through a lot of things in terms of toxic relationships, and then you understand their perspective on it. You say to them, you know, is it a lesson learned? Is it something you're learning from? Or what do you take away from that chapter? Like what's the conclusion at the end? And that helps carve your mindset because somebody might say, oh, I've learnt my lessons, you know, I used it as a lesson. I don't have any remorse or resentment or whatever. I'm happy in myself. I want to move on. That person is probably, their mindset is already positive. It's easier to move forward. They learn from the past.
Learning from the past is so important. I
Yeah.
mean, most of us in life have had problem times in relationships. I know I have.
So have I.
Yeah.
That we all have.
Yeah. And sometimes they can sort of jump up and bite you when you're least expecting it, can't they? And I wanted to sort of delve a bit into that if we could in general terms, you know, because, you know, when something catches you out, how do you deal with the shock of, God, that's, you know, I wasn't expecting that to happen, or, you know, this is my whole world's crumbled because of this, you know, how do you encourage people to deal with that?
It's a difficult question because I always think it depends on the character. You know, it depends on where what you've had to experience in the past, what kind of what's your building blocks of your, you know, and I can speaking generally as well with what I've seen with clients myself maybe as well. I think you deal with it and how you've been genetically made up as well. What's your actual strengths? You know, some people find strength to deal with these things and they can really like delve deep and fight and they can fight back and use it to kind of, like I said, push forward in a different way. But some people might not deal with it as easy as they want to because you're suddenly thrown into this world that you're not used to, and you take a lot of time finding out, and it might break you. And a lot of things, and we say toxic relationship because it's toxic. It does break you, you know, and that's the hardest thing. You know, you get to the rock bottom, or you get to a point where you've never been before in your life. It's how quickly or how you come out of that
Yeah.
and what tools you need. You know, some people reach out to other people for help. Some people do it themselves. Some people read things, you know. I know with my character how it is that if anything that's happened, you know, and I've gone to rock bottom, for example, I find inner strength and I use it as I have to always put in my head, what was that about? You know, I have to get an answer because I love answers.
Yeah.
So I kind of say, what was that? Why was that? Why did that happen? What was that about? You know, and then once I got that answer and then I deal with it and I find this strength in me and I think, well, if that was a lesson, I know what to avoid, you know, that kind of thing. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I know how to drive forward now. Or I use it as a lesson to, like I said, teach, and I teach other people. But it's all a life lesson. And like I said to you, when I'm coaching, and every day is different, when you coach people, any client can come on board. So I take my life lessons as a lesson and I move forward. And I think, actually, do you know what? It's given me tools to work with other people now. And I use that as a strength.
Let's move on to the physical training side of things. Now, I've seen you in the gym, and you know, I mean, most people are there to look at me, I think. And, you know, I mean, you can tell that I go to the gym, can't you? You know, I've seen you in the gym, and your routines they're pretty intense, aren't they? What drives you in the gym?
Do you know, it's a funny question because so many people assume it's superficial. And that's the industry, how it is, physical training and anything gym related. A lot of people assume if you go a lot and you're there almost every day, it must be superficial. It must be because you want to look good. And that is partly true. Obviously, you go into the gym, you want to look a certain way. That's why you're working on your body.
Yeah.
But for me personally, what drives me is actually how I feel because I've got goals in my head, and it's not always superficial.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to I say 50-50. I love dressing up, If I go somewhere, I love dressing up. I like to wear nice dresses. I like to look a certain way for any event. And when
Why didn't you bother today?
I know.
No,
Do you know what? I just chucked anything on. Do you know?
No, I'm joking, everybody.
I think as a woman, it's one of those things where I'm competitive
Yeah.
in myself, but also I have little goals. So one goal I said after I had the children, I had to lose a lot of weight. I mean, I was a lot heavier and I had the health problems. I couldn't exercise. But when I got back to how I wanted and I got probably even stronger and better, one of my goals in my head, I said to myself, every year, I don't want to just work at a summer body, for example. I want to be, I say bikini ready, but all year round. And that kept me, So, for example, I could book a holiday for next week and not feel like, oh my God, I've got to starve myself or I've got to, try and fit into this dress. I want to be ready just to book a holiday tomorrow, for example, and go.
I think women across the country now are taking an absolute hatred to you, Rita.
Thanks. I might as well go then.
How often do you train?
4 times a week properly, as in I say 4 times because I have my little routine,
Mm-hmm.
but then that changes because, for example, the kids,
Yeah.
illnesses and so I'm realistic now.
Yeah.
I used to be at a stage where I used to really struggle with missing a day.
Yeah.
It used to throw me. And one, like, for example, a tool that I say to my clients, I said, when everyone's got busy lives, and I used to be at that point where I used to feel really down in the morning, I didn't make the gym, and I'd spend the whole day just sitting there going, oh my God, I feel really this, I feel that, I feel sad, I didn't go. And
Really?
it just it used to be like that. But I got over time, I started being a bit more realistic, and I thought, the other way to do it is, and I say this to my clients now, is if you've got busy time, you've got kids, routines thrown, a lot of people don't have jobs that are 9 to 5 anymore, but a lot of people are here, there, and everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
So I say to them, I will set up over a week. I say Monday to Friday, for example, or Sunday to Sunday, full week. You want to be in the gym. So I say 4 times a week. I don't care when it is, what time of day, whatever, as long as I get my session in, but that in that week, 4 times. And that's how I look at it and actually helps the mindset in that way. So it's just small shifts like that.
How long's a session?
An hour and a half.
Okay.
If I talk, it's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Or longer.
2 days, I think, is more likely.
Yeah.
You've become a physical training coach as well. What do people gain from a session with you?
I say it's different because I do the emotional coaching and physical, but the physical coaching,
Yeah, let's stick with that.
I will say, and this is my saying, and a lot of PTs might not agree, but I love to say to my clients, they have to need a PT at the start, but then I like my clients to then not need me all the way through. For example, I don't want them to need me in a year because then I feel like I haven't done my job.
Okay.
But I want them to want me later. So at the start, for example, I say you've got a 12-week period of physical coaching and PTing. That first 12 weeks, and this is, for example, a client that has beginners kind of knowledge. So I'm taking a client on and I say the first 12 weeks, I teach a lot, so maybe that's coming from where I used to come from corporate, but I teach a lot. So I teach, for example, strength training, I teach form, I teach them which muscles it's hitting and why they're doing that kind of thing for their body. So everything's tailored to them, that whole package. And it's all individual. So I'm teaching them for their body and their own strengths.
Are you tough on them?
Yeah, I am tough.
I can imagine.
The sessions I give are really tough. But in a way that I've already prepared them mentally. So again, there might have been work that I've done to clients before emotionally already. And then I say to them after the 12 weeks, they should be at a point where they know why they're doing something, they know how to perform. I mean, strength training, it seems like everyone's doing it's really easy, but and a lot of people, well, most people know this, if you don't have the right form, you're not hitting the right muscle, you're not getting the most you can, and obviously results are hindered, so you want, and then it's injury as well, you've got to be really mindful. So I always say the value of getting a PT, and there's a lot you can learn online. I know a lot of people will go online and say, well, I can just do this on YouTube and I can look at this, but everyone's body is different. And I always say that actually, if you want the best bit about having a PT, it's individual. They study your body. I study bodies. I know their injuries. I know their health problems. I know what range of movements they can do, for example, and then age comes into it. I've got a lot of women clients that are hitting, for example, menopause, so there's so many body changes with that, or post pregnancy. So with my sessions, they get the knowledge, they can actually perform what they can perform on their own.
Right.
After 12 weeks, they get to a point where they then need me more for motivation and accountability. So the goals change.
What about lost causes? I mean, do you get people who are, just want to throw money at it, thinking that there's a magic solution without hard work?
Yeah.
That's me, by the way. But
Do you know? Yeah, I don't know if they're lost causes, but I say it's sometimes there's people that maybe don't believe in exercise that can change their body, or they don't see it because there's a lot of people. We live in a world where you click your fingers and you've got something. So you order something today, it's on your doorstep tomorrow. So everyone wants quick fixes, and that's the problem with the modern day. Is because everything else aside from fitness, you can get tomorrow. You can buy this, you can buy that, you can order this.
I have two problems, I think, with going to the gym. And I used to be, when I was younger, I used to be really, really sporty, all kinds of sports at high level. One is now motivation, just getting up in the morning and saying, oh, yeah, I'll go to the gym. Actually, it looks a bit rainy. I think I'll have another cup of tea. That's one
That
thing.
sounds good.
Yeah. And the second thing I have is I don't think I'm in particularly bad shape for somebody of my age. But when I go to the gym, I see people like yourself who look fantastic. I see guys there who are muscle bound and all the rest of it. And I sometimes feel like a little bit insecure, and so it's a real demotivator, actually. How do you overcome that?
Do you know, one of the first thing that a lot of clients say to me, and this is when I worked in a gym, the first thing clients say to me is, I'm so nervous. I've got no confidence just to go up the stairs to the gym because the gym's upstairs. And they didn't even want to take the first step upstairs. So I had to work on their confidence to get upstairs first. And that was the biggest thing. But what it was is how I dealt with that was I said to them, I say knowledge is power. And that's what it was, because actually what it is when you go into anything unknown, you do feel nervous. If someone said to me, go and ride that motorbike, I'd be nervous because I don't know what to do. But if someone taught me, I'd get on that motorbike and I'd go whizzing around all over the place. And it's the same with the gym. And that was my role as a PT, that is overcoming confidence. I figured out if I can get their knowledge up, they knew what they were doing. They walked into that gym and just went, oh, I know what that does, and I know why I'm doing it. So it's knowing how, why, where, whatever. Then that ultimately, vanishes.
How important is a mix of exercises?
When you're training, like I said, it depends on body, but you want to train different muscle groups. You want to train, for example, it's always an easier split with beginners to say upper session, lower session. You want to give your muscles recovery time. And that's the important thing, because actually you value and you actually need, and the progression happens with the recovery of your muscle. So it's one thing working it, but it's just as important to rest the same muscle as well. So it's important to mix up your sessions and mix up the routine.
Do you have to join a gym?
No, you can build one at home.
Do you have one at home?
I do.
Yeah, right.
But no, you don't have to join a gym. I mean, there's so many things. The only thing is, like I said, it all depends on, for example, weather. Some people don't like in the summer. It's easy because a lot of people will go and work on the beach, or they go to a park. You don't need to be in a gym. And I know people that actually take summers off gym membership because actually they say, I'm going to go running. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I say to maintain a routine and a good level of motivation. If you're not that kind of person that can switch from being outdoor indoor, I think it's good to be into a gym at the moment, and I think it's very important mindset, health wise, and with reading all this stuff now, there's so much data out there, and it sounds really in depth, but there's all this data to prove that why you should be strength training at least this many times a week for your body, and certain age categories should have this level of strength training, so you do it, like obviously menopause as well. It's the biggest thing to help menopause symptoms as well. So
yeah, I'm sure when my time comes for that, I'll really struggle, actually.
Probably gone past it.
Oh, meow. Right. What kind of challenges as an instructor do you face?
With clients, you mean, or just industry?
Well, both, actually.
Yeah. So with clients, I think The challenges is like you mentioned earlier, it's the quick fix. So you get
Yeah.
clients that really want the help and they're desperate for it and you want to help them, but they're not buying into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't buy into PT sessions, but they're taking it anyway because they think, or they're not buying into the fact that actually the realistic advice I'm giving them is realistic. So I'm saying to somebody, you need to work on this for a good 6 months. You might see, your whole life will change in a year, but that's too long so that's what's one challenge. With the industry as a whole, financially, I think the importance of PT is always undermined.
Yeah.
I think coaching is undersold sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a two-way thing. I think where people generally, as in people out there, clients and the general public, it's saturated. It is
Yeah.
a saturated market. There's PTs everywhere. There's
Yeah.
gyms everywhere, and it's becoming so. And the other thing is online coaching and things. So
Well,
you know,
like your Joe Wicks type. Yeah.
yeah, and it's really hard. So you've got the big names, household names, and that's one thing. They're selling packages. So it's a constant battle of how to find your niche. And then, for example, in my story, I love being in person. I like the personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very local. I like to deal with somebody face to face.
Yeah.
A lot of people say to me, oh, you'd be great online because you'd get more clients here and there and everywhere. I haven't branched out to that yet because in my head, I'm passionate about seeing somebody. So I've left it as that.
You're a
So
people person, aren't you?
yeah,
It comes out loud and clear.
yeah, and I love
Yeah.
it. And I think online coaching is great because obviously then a client, for example, gets to meet their ideal PT,
Yeah.
and it might not be local. So I think it's great. But that's the other challenge for me, and I think a lot of PTs, it's the financial side of things because, like I said, it's saturated. So there's different price points.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like I said, it's being online and also people now watching videos and learning themselves, which, like I said, it's fine because that's what it's there for. But it's trying to explain the importance of PT to people, as in having a personal, because you've all got your own needs, your body,
Yeah.
issues. Like I do, like I said, the emotional deep coaching.
Yeah.
That's really important. So I have clients
Absolutely.
that love that bit.
You're not going to believe this,
Mm.
but before we started, everybody, Rita said to me that we mustn't overrun because she's got to be somewhere far more important at the end of this. So we've overrun.
Really?
Yeah, really.
That's a shock.
I want you to close out for
Mm.
me by giving me your 3 top tips for developing a healthy mind and a healthy body through fitness.
Mm.
That's putting you on the spot, but it's my game.
I know. I'm sure I said it all. I'm going to repeat myself now.
It doesn't matter. Go on, give us a summary then.
So, healthy mind. I think the healthy mind, developing that is happiness in yourself. I think you need to focus on what makes you happy. So, get your mind healthy. What drives your passion, what drives your goals, setting internal goals. And I think really work on yourself. So I always say, once you're happy in yourself, and then everything's possible and you attract happiness, you are a different person and you see the world differently. So, developing that mindset is important. And the physical, I say, definitely motivation. Motivation for physical strength and physical training is really important because obviously, and that comes with goal setting. Then you want consistency to see results. I always say consistency is the key, and everyone says this, and it's really cliche that I'm saying this, but it is true because you want to develop the routine. The consistency comes with that, and then the results come with that. So it's all driving each other. So you want motivation, consistency, and then the other part of it is, and it sounds like, oh God, I'm in a new subject, but it is eating well.
Yeah.
Eating, drinking well, and it does play a big part because a lot of people say this to you is what you eat. Training is one thing, but what you eat is side by side. So
Yeah.
if you want the overall package, healthy mind, healthy body, it's all of those factors put together.
I made some notes before we started based on our original chat that we had. I've got down here, and I'm going to read it, but they are heartfelt. I think you're an incredible person, I might add. And
Thank you.
brilliant mind, boundless energy,
Mm.
and endless enthusiasm.
Mm.
I've absolutely loved having you in here. It's been really, really good. Flown by.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me.
And I don't think this is the last time that you're going to be sat in these seats. Watch this space on that one. That's the end of this episode of the Leading Lives podcast. I can't believe we've already made 30 shows. There's plenty more to come with some exciting new developments in the works. More on that soon. Bye for now.